Hey, good morning, West Coast. This is Ali Turafter, your guide and mentor. Just waiting a few seconds, preparing here so that we can present the importance of today's talk. We're going to be discussing credit score boosting, the best practices, what to do, and how to increase your credit score effectively with the tips and strategies that we're going to be sharing today. So first and foremost, thank you for attending today's talk. For those who are live, you're more than welcome to leave some comments or start the chat right next to this window. You'll see a chat box. So you can leave some concerns and questions as we're going through this presentation, and I'll do my best to answer you. If not, then you always have the recording of this video, at which point you can leave the comments below this video so that I'll look at it and I'll do my best to present this information on the next possible video that we're going to be doing together. So for the most part, I'm going to go and share 15 different tips and tactics that you will be taking away today. You can write notes down. This will help you. Some of these slides is just basically the title of the tip, and you'll have to basically write the notes down as I'm talking so you get a deeper concept of how to go about executing that tactic that I'll be presenting to you for your benefit when it comes to increasing your credit score and ultimately walking away with great credit on your personal file. So without further ado, let's begin our presentation. So the first tactic and tip is to look at your personal identifiers. And what I mean by personal identifiers is essentially, what kind of information is being reported on all three bureaus, right? It's not just about the variety on your credit check total, or in a score sense. It's really independently when you get a complete and accurate report, or inaccurate report for that matter, from, let's say, Experian individually, from Equifax individually, and TransUnion individually. What do each of those bureaus have on you that identifies personal information? And this includes, your addresses, your name variations, your date of birth, your social security variations, your phone numbers to the employers that you're working with, as well as your spouses or roommates. All these type of individual items can actually abruptly affect your credit score. That means that if you don't have information that's consistent throughout all three bureaus, and the information that's being shared there, it can actually affect your score. And what I mean by that is simply by removing variations of different names, or by addresses, or even employers to the phone numbers that they have on record, your score can actually increase a few points. And that point system can be anywhere between 15 to 20 points, or sometimes, some clients have seen increases up to 75 points. Now, I'm not saying that that will guarantee score increase. There are a lot of different other factors that we're going to discuss today. But for sure, some of these things that you want to consider is what type of personal information or identifiers are being presented on your credit report. And that's what you need to do. And it's really getting access to individual reports. It's really looking at Equifax individually, TransUnion individually, as well as Experian individually. When you look at them independently, you assess what they're reporting, because they are the ones that are reporting your data. The individuals who are the companies giving you credit, extending credit to you, are the ones that are telling you which bureaus they utilize. So that information has to be matching across all three bureaus, right? So you cannot have, let's say, one bureau has a middle initial, another one doesn't, and another one has a complete middle name. You got to fix that. You got to make sure that your personal identifiers are consistent all throughout. So that's the first tip I have to share with you. Going over to the second tip, security freezing. And a lot of people will hear this terminology, do a security freeze on your reports, do a security freeze to LexisNexis, and all these type of companies that are third-party reporting agencies or aggregators that report to the bureaus directly in terms of furnishing your personal data to them. Security freeze is an important component to increasing your score. And the reason I say that is because that is the first step that you need to take if you have any type of public records, specifically, if it's liens, judgments, tax liens per se, to even your bankruptcy or a judgment that's issued against you from a company that's going after your personal assets or wage garnishment. So security freeze is very important. It's the step in regards to removing public records. And I believe one of the biggest things you need to understand is the beauty is, in recent legislation, tax liens will no longer be reporting to your credit report, which is great. that's definitely an advantage for you. But going forward, if you have bankruptcies or any type of liens or things that may potentially affect you, like child support, that type of information is coming from third-party aggregators, particularly, CoreLogic, SageStream, which is another company that reports tremendous amount of data to the credit reporting agencies, as well as LexisNexis. Now, security freezing, the factor in which they increases your credit score is because once you take care of that, the next obvious process is to clean up whatever public records you have. And for the most part, it does take a few steps. If you're not confident enough, or if you're trying to figure things out and getting your journey across to the finish line, at which point you will figure out like, okay, well, I need to do this first, and the second, and then the third. So it does take a few steps. Sometimes, through a security freeze, it can take up to another 60 days to see efficient disputing happen with the public records that you have on file. So that's like if you're obviously doing it yourself. Here at Best Credit Resources, we have different tactics and strategies, particularly on the compliance and regulatory side that we handle. So we do handle things a little bit quicker than the typical individual going out there and trying to resolve it themselves. But you can still do it. And that is why I give you this tip. Consider security freeze, particularly with LexisNexis and SageStream. Those are the two big ones, CoreLogic, and all the other type of individual reports that I shared with you in another finance talk in reference to the Independent Consumer Reporting Agency. So feel free to look through those videos. I have them. My playlist is here. Subscribe to my channel and turn the notifications on. I'll give you some content to share, regular videos like this, so that you get tips and tactics to help your score. So let's go over to the next tip. Tip number 3, balance relocation. Balance relocation. And what that means is very simple. For example, if you have, let's say, a credit card of $5,000 and you're almost maxed out, let's say you're almost at 4,300 or 4,800. Now, if you have other cards, for example, if you have a card with, let's say, Chase, that's the $5,000 card we're talking about. And then you have another one with, let's say, Discover, but that one has 6,000 or even 4,000. What you can do is you can actually relocate some of the balances that you have on your Chase card by doing a balance transfer to your Discover card. And what that does is it increases your utilization. Decreases your utilization. So your debt to utilization ratio is lower. Ultimately, it can increase a few points. Now, I'm not saying this is going to make a significant difference, but it does help quite a bit. Now, sometimes what you want to consider is if you have an existing card, those existing cards come with balance transfer promotional rates. Now, sometimes for the individuals who are just listening to the balance relocation strategy for the first time, you've probably heard about it, but never executed that. If you have an existing card that's been open for a while, particularly for more than 12 months or 18 months, the promotional rate of balance transfer may no longer exist. So that is why you need to call in whatever number that's in the back of your card in the customer service line and verify with them whether or not if they have any other promotional rates going on for a balance transfer. And if so, then if you're eligible for it and what's the cost. Of you'll pay a 3% cost of total balance transfer, which is nothing compared to the interest rate you'll be saving and the score boost that you'll be getting. So that's one of the best tips I have for you when it comes to your balances. And I believe that if you execute it the right way, you can increase your credit score. And again, the best tip for you when it comes to your balances and how to keep that compared to the credit you have available is typically below 20%. And like I shared in one of my videos, and the reason why I say that, excuse me, is because by keeping it below 20%, if ever you come across a situation where you need to use your credit, well, at least you'll still have that 30% threshold. You have another 10% you can utilize, and that can be useful and helpful to you. So I recommend that. Let's go over to the 4th tip. Late payment analysis. Now, what that simply means is on your credit report, most probably you'll have a few late payments. It's normal. It happens. Sometimes we fall into certain circumstances. Sometimes we can't pay and we fall behind. A lot of individuals out there in the credit reporting industry, particularly the credit repair companies or individuals who are trying to do business in the credit repair service sector, will tell you just write a goodwill letter. Here's the thing and the truth about goodwills, okay? They depend, the effectiveness of a goodwill letter will depend tremendously on the history you have with that particular creditor. If you're a repeat customer who is constantly late and you catch up to your balance and you're still late once in a while, and it's a very regular pattern with that credit company or the credit card company, what's going to happen is the goodwill letter is becoming ineffective. It will not work. It's because they know you are basically trying to say that, oh look, I'm not gonna be late. Please do a courtesy default cure, or help my payments report positively if you can. And they know, okay, well, this individual is basically, wasting his time because he's regularly being late with these credit card payments. It's not something that, it's the first time. Goodwills only work on a first time basis. Sometimes they can work, if given the consideration that, look, you can show supporting documentation. For example, okay, look, I lost my job. Here's my income. Here's my layoff papers, whatever it is, and especially if it's a significant payment and you're late on that, that can help. That's where the goodwill steps in. But in a regular sense, goodwills don't work as effectively. So credit repair companies out there, some of these guys, I know what they're doing. They'll write you a goodwill, send it to your creditor, and that creditor is going to come back and just not really do any change because they know for a fact that, nothing significant happened in your life. You didn't lose a job, or, nothing of supporting documentation can be provided to these creditors. So that's why it's not working. That goodwill stuff is a joke if you don't know what you're doing. So you have to really analyze, okay, well, look, how long have I been with this credit card company? Typically, if you've been around for 2 years and you've been late once, that goodwill may work. In fact, you can actually call in and ask them, hey, look, I see on my credit report that I'm reporting late. I understand that, I've been with you guys for 2 years. I've never been late in my payment history. Can you guys communicate with the credit reporting agencies and fix that as a one-time courtesy? And most typically, by just simply calling in, you can get the same results as a credit repair company sending a goodwill letter for you out there. And that's not what we do, by the way. We challenge it based on compliance, and we do a little bit different things, such as, regulatory compliance on our side, and we handle it internally with the credit bureau compliance departments. But for those individuals out there who are trying to fix credit on their own, sending goodwill letters may not work. And I give you the exact reason why. You have to have history, and you have to demonstrate that there have been some sort of significant loss in your life, particularly financial loss, and then utilize that information to get the payment adjustment. But if not, and if you're a regular person who's regularly late, then you have to go through a proper process of fixing this. And I'm guaranteeing you that disputing may not work. So you have to be careful with that. So that's one of the ways that you can increase your credit score, by simply adjusting your late payment status on your credit reports. Going over to the next tip. Tip number 5, collection accounts. Now, of course, a lot of individuals out here have different type of collection accounts, whether it be medical, whether it be student loan collections, to even, Sprint sending off different type of Diversify consultant collection accounts, to AWA collections and Midland funding, all these type of collection companies. The first thing you want to realize, and I'm going to give you something that's really important, write it down because it can help you. Okay, collection activity. They have to adhere by the law, what we call the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Now, this tip is very useful, is because let's say if a collection account is reporting on your credit bureau for the first time, you've never heard of them, you know who they are, but they've never communicated with you, they've never sent you documentation. Most probably they never sent you a letter stating, hey, look, we're putting this item on your credit report. You owe this company that original creditor. Here's the statement of balance, and you owe us now. If they haven't sent you that prior to even posting on your credit report, that violates the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That actually violates the FCRA as well. There's 2 violations. The first one is because the number one thing prior to putting it on your report is they have to send you collection notice. And that notice has to be in writing within 5 days of reporting on your credit bureau. Most probably nobody ever does that. That's the first violation. Second violation, no matter what type of negative information is posted on your report, you always have to get a letter and a statement indicating that, look, we're sending you a notice that this will affect your credit. This negative item is being posted due to the following reason, whatever negative reason it is. Most creditors, in fact, 100% of the time, they never ever send you any letter telling you that there will be a negative annotation in your credit report. But when it comes to collection agencies, they are the ones who are violating this rule and law frequently. Not only do they violate the FDCPA, but they also violate the Fair Credit Reporting Act on a regular basis. Now, dealing with collection accounts can be tricky, right? Sometimes, when it comes to medical, a lot of information with the HIPAA law, when it comes to like medical records and protecting your medical records, are shared with these third-party collection agencies, and they're the ones reporting. So there are several violations that you want to look out for. Analyze what they've violated. Analyze how they started that collection activity. Just reporting on your credit report alone consists of a collection activity. There are several case laws and precedents that took in court, whether it be on a supreme or state level, that defines that, Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. When a collection company puts their name on your credit report, it's a collection activity. That's a violation. So just on that alone, they can be subject to $1,000 in punitive damages, as well as any financial damages that you got incurred because of the loss of credit or the ability to borrow. Now, just be careful with that. Okay, so collection accounts are some things that you want to take care of immediately that will help you boost your credit score, because that does take your score down quite a bit. So that's the tip I have to share with you today. Let's go over to tip number 6. Charged off accounts. This is a very common negative item. Now, charged off accounts essentially means that the debt has been wiped off their balance sheets. They're handing it over to a third party. They're transferring it. Unfortunately, a charged off account's balance is supposed to be $0. Doesn't matter if it's a high credit or whatnot. But in most credit reports, you will see a charged off account with balances that are showing different numbers. The payments are at 0, but the balance itself cannot be a certain number. It has to be null, which is 0. And that is a basis of disputing on its own. So if you look at that, you highlight it, you send a letter over to whoever it is, whether it be TransUnion, Experian, or even Equifax, and say, look, I'm noticing that this charge off account is showing a balance. I'm reporting this to be inaccurate because there's not supposed to be any balance when it's a charged off account. You can dispute it that way. Unfortunately, a lot of times they will come back verified or even just simply corrected. The credit reporting agencies can just rely on the data by the furnisher, whoever is putting that information up. And this will obviously lead to a collection account. So taking care of charge-offs can be tricky, but there are ways to do it. Best Credit Resources here, we deal with the compliance and regulatory side. Like I said, there are different ways that we challenge things. But if you're doing it yourself, then that's the first way. And you might want to just consider looking at the account, analyzing it, circling and highlighting whatever you need to, and running a very detailed letter, elaborately explaining, the information that's being misreported or inaccurate. So that's the sixth tip I have for you to increase your credit score. Interest rate reduction. Very tricky, but can be done. Now, a lot of people will go to companies and credit card companies and call them and say, look, I can no longer afford my minimum payment. And they will go through this thing called a hardship department. Now, can this help you increase your credit score? Actually, it's counterintuitive. It can actually decrease it. And the reason I say that is when you reduce that payment because you can't afford it, they close your card. That means your credit utilization drops. Your whatever limits you have disappears. And when it comes to that, what's going to happen is your score can actually decrease. Productively, though, you're saving. So you're going to increase cash flow, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's good for your credit. There's effective ways of reducing your interest rate. And one of the best ways is, like I said, balance transfers can help. If you do it, you got a 0% card for a few months. You pay that balance completely off, and then you just work that way. A lot of people make the mistake of calling the credit repair companies and requesting an increased reduction. It's like if you're telling me, hey, Ali, I'm paying you, $5,000. Can I just pay you $1,000? Is that okay? Can you reduce that? So you're basically threatening the income they're earning from you. And the reaction automatically, if politically correct, they will say, unfortunately, you don't qualify. You will never qualify. You're threatening their income. So the way to do this, the right way of doing this, is really looking at balance transfer options that offer premium rates or promotional rates at 0%, or even less, like 3% or even 6%. Sometimes a credit line with a credit union can help because, yes, credit unions don't typically have the standard low rates that traditional financial institutions will have, but they will offer you a good rate regardless, with preferable terms that you can utilize to pay down your high balance or high interest debt. So that's the way to reduce your interest rate. Of course, it's not directly affecting the primary card that you want to reduce, aside the fact that you can do a hardship. But like I said, I do not recommend hardship. It does reduce the credit limit that you have available, and it affects your utilization ratio and its totality. So be careful when executing that plan. Let's go over to the next tip. Did I skip tip number 8? No. Okay, well, this should be tip number 8. So what you want to do is you want to apply for new credit, okay? So when you apply for new credit, it's basically meaning, like I shared a video the other day with primary sources that you can do. Really, it's on you, okay? Like if you need furniture, you're moving into a new home, look at different furniture companies, okay? And ask them, look, do you guys have a credit division? If so, what credit reporting agency do you work with? And most probably they'll tell you, like, oh, we work with Equifax or TransUnion, whatever it is. It's good. That means they report to those bureaus. And if that's what they rely on and they have interchangeable data between those bureaus, then that means that there's an opportunity for you to increase your credit right there, and you can apply. If you need a television, look at Best Buy, all the other type of companies. Some of these guys, Amazon, Best Buy, all these type of companies, they use a company called Synchrony Financial. Regardless of how many accounts you can have one with Best Buy, Amazon, whatever. Synchrony Financial can extend almost unlimited amount of credits across all those type of retailers. You can qualify, and they will still report individually. But be careful. You don't want to do a lot of inquiries. You just want to be careful with that. Now, recommendation when it comes to applying new credit here is make sure you don't have a lot of late payments. Make sure your inquiries are less than 5 inquiries in the last 6 months. Make sure that you don't have any negatives showing, such as charge-offs or collection accounts. Make sure your public records are clean. We talked about that. It's very important. So do execute that on a proper way so that you can make the benefit here. And of course, from that point on, apply for new credit. Now, I talked about furniture and electronics. Don't forget the myjewelersclub.com. That one's pretty good. $5,000 credit limit across all 3 bureaus. It's beautiful. It's a $100 application, and you pay to maintain, but you can keep it like a very low balance and continue reporting. You also have my selflender.com. Selflender.com is pretty cool. It's basically a savings account. But let's say if you want to save $1,200, you just save $100 a month. It's a 12-month term, but it reports at $1,200. So what's going to be good for that is that it reports across all 3 bureaus, ultimately increasing your credit score. So that's a good way of doing it. So there's others, of course, you want to look out for. You can research, but I strongly advise you to build credit on what you need. Okay, adding different type of trade lines or new credit and stuff that you won't need down the road is not going to really help you. It can increase your score, but you're going to end up spending anyway, so might as well do things that you'll need. So just be careful with that, okay? Moving on to the next tip. Credit unions. Now, I talked about this quite a bit. Credit unions are very useful. Now, a lot of you, of course, are not in the military. If you are, then it's great. You have a family member or someone who's participated. Navy Federal is a very good place to start. Now, if you don't qualify for that, you have PenFed and a lot of other credit unions, depending on your region and municipality or wherever state you're in. Look around, see what's available, communicate with them, get to know what their preferences are, what membership benefits they provide to you, and apply with them. Open a checking account. It's a good idea. And of course, most cases, keep it seasoned. And what I mean seasoned is once you open that checking account, keep it live for like 6 months, build that relationship with that credit union, and then once you got good credit, go to them, start small, even if it's secured credit card, $500, build that relationship. Credit unions are very favorable when it comes to extending credit to you. After that 6 month of secured card of 500, you ask them, look, can I get unsecured funding? They can give you anywhere between 5, 10, 12,000. They give you high limits, easy. So, but you have to have good credit. You have to have history. And of course, you have to build that relationship with them. So credit unions are very good. Now, how many credit unions should you open? Well, depends, right? Like if you need credit, you look at your financial plan and you say, Ali, I need like, $50,000 by next year in cash lines of credit. Well, now's the time to start opening at least, 2 to 3 credit union accounts, save that money. Create deposits with them, do some secured credit with them, build new credit accounts, like I said, with furniture companies, electronics, Jewelers Club, My Self Lender, clean up your credit report, increase your existing lines with your creditors that you have. Just do these tactics and you will get on your way. Yes, okay, it's time consuming. It takes a little bit of work, but heck, you're not doing this in one day. It's a progressive thing, right? So you got to do that. So consider credit unions for being friendly, community oriented, and of course, extending what we call, courtesy amount of credit. They're very, how do you say this, generous when it comes to extension of credit. So consider that as, this 10th point, or I should say 9th, when it comes to increasing your credit score. We talked about increasing existing credit just briefly in the past slide. And what I mean by that is look at your credit cards that you have existing. Trick here is make sure that utilization is not like maxed out, right? Because then they'll be scared. They'll be like, well, what if that person has a chance of defaulting? Don't go and extend credit on, well, probably you're not going to get approved anyways, but if you go and try to extend credit on a card that's like 10,000 limit and you already have like 9,000, I'm pretty sure they won't give it to you, okay? Unless you really like qualify and you have other credit that's really fantastic. Your score is like 750 or something. Just be careful with that. Look, if you're at 50% utilization, probably they will give you, okay? So be careful with that. And make sure your score is like around 680 minimum. So you can increase your existing credit by just simply calling. They'll offer you terms. If they say you don't qualify at this time, then just think of, seasoning the existing new accounts that you have, working with credit unions, paying on time, reducing your balances, doing some balance transfers, just, playing the right role and eventually coming back to increase your scores. And you can do that very easily if you maintain that discipline. Next tip, separate your assets. This is very important. Marriages, very big thing. And unfortunately, credit files get merged during marriages and they get the most damage during a divorce. Unfortunately, life circumstances happen. We can't avoid that, but you got to be careful with that. And what I mean by that is make sure you separate your assets from the get-go. Don't do mergers, addresses and all that stuff. Yes, you're going to be together, but make sure that you do have, like, a lot of individuals do this type of thing called the prenup agreement, and they separate their assets. They can affect in real estate and all these type of things. Now, that's a legal basis. Disclosure, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just giving you ideas. So you got to be contacting your own legal counsel to figure out what's going to be affecting your personal assets and stuff like that. But your credit ultimately gets attached to it, and unfortunately goes through, hell and back when it comes to divorces and situations that you cannot control. So be careful with that. From the get-go, separate your assets. Make sure that you have different information and keep that unique to yourself. Never share that information, and always increase your credit by doing the tips that I've shared prior. Okay, so always keep your assets separate. Diversify. Diversifying credit is simple. We talked about electronics, furniture, jewelry. You can talk about software. You can talk about education loans and all these type of things. You can talk about savings at plans. That itself, like the tips I shared with you today, alone is great diversification. Now, there are other extended credit opportunities that you can go out there and apply for, which will give you greater diversity as well. But you want to be careful with that, because you don't want to over diversify, meaning like, okay, this person's looking through desperate, very small, credit limits on each account, 100 different inquiries. Don't do that. Diversify based on powerful accounts, like 5,000 limits, 3,000 limits, and then increase it from there. And over time, you never stop applying for credit, because credit is with you until the day you die, unfortunately. So you have to make sure that you keep on improving your credit score every year on year, and make sure that you apply for new opportunities. Look for that, look for what type of credits you can get extended for yourself. There's no real limit to how much you can get in your lifetime in terms of credit. I saw an individual, okay, with $4 million in credit, different type of cards, different type of loans. I mean, look at that, $4 million in credit. Probably doesn't even earn more than $200,000 a year with the taxes he's paying and everything like that. So how in the world is he going to spend $4 million in credit? So, but he still did it, right? And what that does is, to a lender, when you're applying for, let's say down the road, real estate, multifamily financing, things like that, when you're investing in real estate, the stronger your credit, okay, the less questions they will ask you, and the less documentation they'll request. There'll be more, they may request documentation, but they'll be less stringent with you, because they know you're responsible. They know you're strong. You carry a certain type of reputation with your credit. So that's very important. So be careful with that. Diversify your credit. Do it the right way. Year on year, try to improve. And that's the tip I got to share with you. Of course, this is very important. Monitor your personal credit regularly. A lot of people don't want to pay for monitoring service, which is great. It's fine, but I recommend it. And scoresense.com, very good place. It'll give you tips, things like that, notices that you'll get immediately. That's a good place to start. So think of that. Credit check total, okay. It's okay. You will pay a little bit more, but ScoreSense has a more favorable pricing option. I recommend them. I'm not affiliated with them, by the way. I'm not getting paid to advertise them or whatever, right? But I'm just saying that from what I've seen, they're pretty good. They're pretty good in terms of active account reporting, accuracy of the information being reported, as well as other things that can, like utilization and giving recommendations and stuff like that. So that's where you want to go and check it out. Scoresense.com. Okay. Next tip. So this is a big one. We've all been caught into this, unfortunately, myself included. We have friends and family. Sometimes they need help. Sometimes they need assistance. And it could be, look, can you guarantee this loan for me? Can you guarantee this car for me? Can you guarantee this property for me? And because we're friends and family, we almost feel obliged. But here's the truth. You cannot guarantee for others. You cannot personally guarantee for others. There is a huge risk to this, okay? Because you never know when life circumstances change. We're not being biased to anyone. We're not, judging anyone. There's no prejudice there. But it's just a perspective of, look, you as an individual, you have your reputation to protect. Your reputation includes your personal credit. So if you go ahead out there and you start guaranteeing for individuals, what it's going to do is it's going to put your file at risk. Unfortunately, some of these individuals will default. Some of these people will become late, and that's going to report on your personal credit. If you're ever looking to build wealth and prosperity, Personally guaranteeing for others is basically latching on the garbage that others can bring and potentially harm your credit file. And I'm not saying that they're bad people. It's just unfortunately some of these individuals will go through life circumstances that you cannot control. So always build credit on things and factors that you can control. This is how you're going to create success for your wealth and prosperity, particularly your financial condition and confidence. So never guarantee for others. That's a huge tip when it comes to increasing your score. And the reason I say that is because as you're working on your personal file, as you're developing those relationships with credit unions, financial institutions, new creditors, what you want to do is you want to keep it constant. You want to increase year on year. And some of that stuff can be like getting authorized users. Once you have good credit, you can actually extend good credit to others, authorized users. You can create arrangements. They can pay you monthly. You can increase your income like that, your cash flow. But what it does is others are leveraging your credit file. So this is the benefit, right? Some of these individuals that I know on a month-to-month basis are getting anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 of cash flow, passive income by just reporting others to their credit reports. Now that's good for business. It's good for personal. It's good for credibility. It helps others, and once others get good credit, they pass it on. So it's really like a community building effort. So you want to contain that idea of guaranteeing for others. Just control yourself on that perspective because it will benefit you down the road. It'll help you increase your scores, of course. But if anybody's asking you to do that, unfortunately, decline it and say the reason why it's because I'm very sensitive when it comes to my personal credit. I have to maintain the integrity of it. My financial advisor said not to do it. Now you can label my name, whatever it is. Feel free to do it out there, but make sure that you do it responsibly and don't ever guarantee for anybody else. Okay, so that's what I have left with this information. And I hope that today's video presentation was helpful to you. Once again, Ali Raftar. Hey guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you're here for the first time, please subscribe because you're going to get notifications regularly. We post great content. I give advice for free, things that you don't want to miss because it will be helping you on your personal journey when it comes to personal credit. We'll talk about business credit as well on a regular basis going forward. I'll be doing regular videos throughout the week. I appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, you can always write at talk@bestcreditresources.com or leave a comment below this video. I'll look at those comments and questions and I'll answer them. Even if it's in our singular video or the next week's finance talk, I will answer them. Okay, so I appreciate you guys this morning. Thank you. Once again, if you're on the West Coast, if you're on the East Coast, well, it's good to see you in the afternoon. I'll see you guys next time. Ali Taraftar, guide and mentor from bestcreditresources.com. Bye for now.